Hey guys, welcome back to the Thought of Thoughts podcast. I am your host, Tia. I know it's been a long time since I've been on the podcast. Well, actually, not that long. Right now, I'm recording this January 31st, and I think I last posted in December. I can't even remember, but not that long, but long enough. You know what I mean? I know that in November I was sick and then I got sick again in December. And then January, with it just being the new year and coming back from being sick, I just really needed to focus on myself and do things for myself. But here I am back. I will be releasing February 2nd. So that's exciting. And I'm just glad to be back here. I think that I should tell you guys Happy New Year as well, since I didn't get a chance to tell you guys that when it was early January, but Happy New Year. So today we're going to be talking about spending time alone and just being by yourself for a second, because this is something that I really used to struggle with, and I really used to hate being alone and spending time by myself. Truly, I really, really, really did not like it. And I always felt bad about it because I knew so many people who enjoyed, being alone. They enjoyed their own presence, or at least that's what they portrayed, because we never really know. And they may comment things about how people need to find themselves and find comfort in being alone. And I never really responded or engaged in those conversations because I knew that was something that I struggled with personally. I wouldn't say I necessarily get attached to people so quickly, but most of the time I am extremely, extremely optimistic and excited about new encounters and just the potential closeness of it all. And I'm just excited to see what can be developed and how far and how deep things can go. And I can say that this leads to creating these expectations, which then lead to disappointments. But that's something to unpack for another day. That is something to unpack for another day because I don't want to go down that rabbit hole. But, anyways, I noticed that in almost every therapy session, I was expressing to my therapist how lonely I felt, how much time I spent alone, and it started to become a thing that I noticed was damaging to my mental and my emotional state. And majority of the time, I am on autopilot, completing tasks and going places alone and doing things by myself, whatever, right? But in these moments where I am still, I always felt lonely. The times where I would be by myself and where I would unwind, I always wish that there was someone to hang out with, watch movies with, play games with, or even talk on the phone with. And it was almost as if every time I was in a moment where I was still, my brain needed a distraction each and every time. When I was alone with nothing but ample time to think, you know, I noticed that my brain just immediately focused on all things negative all the time. And eventually I had to train my brain to find the benefits of being alone and actually gain an understanding that I was alone, but I was not lonely. Changing my perspective to actually finding the benefits of spending time alone did not happen overnight, but I'm happy that it happened at the time that it was supposed to, because spending time alone, especially in adulthood, I think is so crucial. And I just think that everyone needs time alone. You need time alone. And I do think there needs to be a balance because, as I mentioned before, too much alone time can be extremely damaging in many, many ways, mentally and emotionally. However, recently, oh my goodness, recently, I had a lot of social interaction, and truthfully, I indulged in so much engagement because I haven't in such a long time. But because the engagement was back to back, I just started to feel so burnt out socially and quick. I really thought that I could handle it, but that's definitely young Tia. Young Tia has the energy to engage with people for days and not get tired. But no, like, social burnout is so real. And I think it's so important to take a step back sometimes and spend that time alone so you can recharge and so you can show up as your best self in your future interactions. Because I was so burnt out socially, I started to feel as I started to feel as if I was not showing up as the best friend that I could be. And that stayed on my mind for a while as well. And when it comes to that time to recharge, I really think it's important to take as much time as you need. And the timing is going to look different for everybody. One person may need 6 hours to recharge, another person might need 6 days, you know? Another person might need 6 months. Like, you never know. But I definitely think it's important to respect that of others as well. And I think it's just a crucial part in your self esteem and what you bring forward to those interactions and your next engagement and things like that. Just overall social interaction. If you don't feel right about yourself, you're not going to feel right when you connect with others. And I think that means so much. So definitely take that into consideration as well. Another thing I realized as a benefit to spending time alone is I like to be in control. Yeah, I like to be in control and not the bossy type of in control. At least that's what I try not to be. But when you're with other people, okay, you are no longer experiencing things how you prefer to experience them. Instead, you have to hear the perspective of others. You have to hear the preferences of others. And then, well, this might not apply to all people, but for me, sometimes I kind of fall into being extremely considerate of the other person's feelings and preferences and things like that, that it just sucks the fun out of everything. I don't know if that's related to people pleasing. Again, that might be something I need to unpack another time. If you're not like that, I'm so happy for you. But I know for me, I am constantly considering others when I am with others. And I never have to worry about that when I do things for myself, by myself. It's just a more enjoyable experience depending on what I am doing. A small example would be if I book a hotel room with someone and I prefer to sleep with it cold and they prefer to sleep with it hot. This is just an example because I honestly don't know anyone who prefers to sleep with it hot, but maybe warm. Let's just say warm, okay? I now have to take their preferences into consideration. And then there has to be some sort of mediation. I think this is where balance means a lot because you get to pick and choose when you want to deal with things like this. And I think that's another beautiful thing about adulthood. No one is obligated to see each other or talk to each other every day. Everyone has their own thing going on. It's not like grade school where you take the same bus. You have 5 out of 7 classes together. You eat lunch together. You take the same bus home. You go outside. None of that. And I love that. Okay, another example. And this actually might sound crazy, but I do not like having passengers in my car. And, some days I want to listen to my music all the way up. And some days I might want to listen to a podcast. And some days I might want to listen to absolutely nothing. And I think that every time I have a passenger in my car, I have to take into consideration their preferences or there's some sort of commentary on the things that I'm listening to, and it just becomes too much. And when I'm riding alone, I don't have to deal with those things. Or I might even have to consider their comfort. Do they feel uncomfortable in the car? Is the heat or the AC too much for them? When I am alone, when I am doing things alone and completing tasks alone and doing things for myself and by myself, I feel a lot more confident. I feel a lot more secure and a lot more safe. And it just overall takes the pressure off. It's amazing. I mean, the other day I woke up, I ran errands by myself all morning from like 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. I was done before lunchtime. I like to be in and out. If you know me, I'm one of those people that like to get things done early in the morning before places get hectic, before people are everywhere. It might be my anxiety talking, but whatever. And I thought to invite someone with me on these errands, but I said, no. Take your time. Do things as you please. Enjoy yourself. Make it fun. And that's exactly what I did. So I just think that it's just become so much more enjoyable. And I can't believe I used to be in the mindset of, oh my gosh, I need to have someone. Like, I don't know. Maybe it was something in me that needed to be fed at that time. Attention. Maybe my brain, like I said, just needed a distraction. But right now, I love this. I love being able to pick and choose when I want others involved in something that I want to do. Spending time alone gives you time to self-reflect, and it also allows you to develop new thoughts, new opinions, new ideas. You know, it just helps you find out new things about yourself, and that's one of the greatest parts of it all. It's actually so crazy because spending time alone has also shifted my thoughts on marriage. And my feelings fluctuate a lot when it comes to marriage. Plus, I'm young, and my feelings today can change in the next couple of weeks or years. But right now, I am in a headspace where I just feel like I don't want to be married. Simply because I do not want to compromise or sacrifice anything, I feel like that sounds so bad, but that's how I feel. That's how I feel right now. And no matter how big or small the situation is, compromising just doesn't sound fun. At least for right now, it just doesn't sound fun. I've also been seeing people talk about being married and having separate houses or separate bedrooms. And honestly, it doesn't sound like a bad idea. I mean, separate bedrooms sounds better. Separate homes is insane, but separate bedrooms, that sounds like that can happen. But to conclude this episode, spending time alone, as I mentioned, was initially a major, major challenge for me, but now it is something that I seek so much more often. And spending time alone and being independent just it makes you feel so good about yourself, your relationships, your interactions. You begin to feel more secure, you know? I really think that spending time alone can be a good thing. Even now, when I hang out with people or talk to people, any interaction, I do my best to thank them for their time, their energy, just everything, because I know that it's not always easy. And people also have their own internal battles that they're facing each and every day. And sometimes engagement is the last thing that they want to do. But when someone carves out that time to be with me, to talk to me, to spend time with me, it just means so much to me. You can ask one of my friends. I'm always like, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for picking me up. Thank you for everything. Because people's time and energy is nothing to play with. And sometimes they prefer to spend time alone. But anyways, thank you guys so much for listening. I'm so happy to be back. What? I'm so happy to be back here and talking to you guys. But thank you guys so much for listening. Make sure you subscribe, listen, follow on Spotify, Anchor, and Apple Podcasts. And also make sure you guys are following the podcast Instagram because you guys are not following the podcast Instagram, okay? At Thread of Thoughts Pod. And we will talk soon.